And welcome in, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast, the only show you will find on the internet that is just like every other show, but we don't lie about it. But we are here to tell you about what's going on in the wide world of sports. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. We had ourselves an absolutely hectic last 48 hours, let alone week in sports. We got a lot to get into. Some good, some bad, some ugly, some very personal, some just get it away from us.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 48 hours. But hey, we're here. We're through it. We're through the deadlines, and now we're ready for the good stuff, right?
Well, hopefully we'll definitely see. But without further ado, we're not going to waste any time. Let's go and get into the first part of our show. That is, of course, the tip-off brought to you by our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code BUZZSports for $20 off your first purchase. Concert tickets, sporting event tickets, comedy shows, anything that requires tickets, you can get yourself $20 off using the code BUZZSports with your first ticket. So we're going to go to we're going to get this right out of the way. We're going to rip the Band-Aid off. Your Auburn Tigers making a move, but not quite the move that maybe the move they needed, but not the move anyone wanted is they have let Hugh Freeze go as the head coach. DJ Durkin named as the interim head coach, filling in as well. Third coach in, I believe, 6 years, if I'm not mistaken, 7 years to take over since the firing of Gus Malzahn. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't really love the Hugh Freeze hiring in the first place. So I'm like, you know what, I ain't tripping. But as the distinguished alum / just fan / painful friend of the Auburn Tigers, how you feeling about this?
Yeah, look, I think I called this at the beginning of the year. If anybody heard me talk about Auburn, they're not sniffing playoff contention. They're barely sniffing bowl eligibility. And that's still a reach. I mean, it's not given. Hugh Freeze was always a questionable hire. Hopefully he was going to do well. He did great recruiting receivers. He just forgot to recruit the other positions that you need. So yeah, does it shock me? No, it was a matter of time. He just wasn't getting it going. It does kind of shock me. It's this year, but you lose to Kentucky. This is going to happen. But if you look at the rest of their losses, everyone is within one score. So it's hard to be like, oh, this was awful. And especially when you look at some of the crazier things that have happened to Auburn this year, Oklahoma game being one of them, and all of those issues. It's not the only one that was an issue. Yeah. Georgia, let's not even get started on that one. So, it was just kind of a culmination of crazy events, but he did not help himself. He had weapons. That offense has weapons, and it's just like he couldn't do anything with them. And the Damari Alston thing, I think, was the unsung part of this that really was his first notice that he's going to be out the door. Damari Alston getting dismissed from the team after coming back from injury, not being playing time, and then asking for a red shirt. And they just said, no, you're not going to be part of the team anymore. That was a big oh no, because he had the locker room. He was a captain with his team. And for Hugh Freeze to pull something like that, it's crazy. Now, DJ Durkin doesn't shock me that he's getting a shot as an interim coach. They got to have somebody to fill in. I hope he doesn't get shafted like they did Cadillac after Cadillac did a pretty good job with a really bad team. Hopefully Durkin can do a great job turning this around. And hey, you beat Alabama at the end of the year. You got a pretty good shot at keeping your job. I guess I'm making it formal and no longer interim. So yeah, I would say it's a sad day, but it's not. Most Auburn fans are like, yeah, okay, this is going to happen. The only sad thing is I think you have to pay $25 million.
Yeah, so it's like $25 million a year or something like that
for
this buyout. Plus they got Harrison's buyout still, if I'm not mistaken. They're covering there's a lot of they're starting to go full Las Vegas Raiders on us right now. They're paying more coaches to stay away than they are to actually coach.
Yeah, it's still not as bad as another school that just recently fired their $92.5 million buyout. But yeah, it's still not great. I mean, it is what it is, though. The guy from Yellowwood can pay that by himself. It'll be okay. And I think that's the whole. He's the driving. That's another conversation for a different day, maybe about Auburn. But the influence of boosters that don't need to necessarily be influencing anything is it's happening at Auburn now, and more so than it's ever happened before. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm not necessarily excited about the next hiring phase because of what I just said.
What I think is very interesting too, as you mentioned, weirdly enough, when Freeze was there, they got the receiver recruiting right. They've had some really good pass catchers. If you could combine that with the Malzahn and the Hairston regimes where they got everything but receiver, it felt like Like we can remember, like you had like Bo Nix at quarterback at one point. You had some guys like Derek Brown on the defensive line. Like you had some guys during those eras. You just can never get receivers right, so the passing game always suffered. Now you got receivers right, but everything else isn't working, so the passing game is still suffering. It's like you combine these receivers with Bo Nix pre-Oregon plus Jaquiz Hunter and some of those defenses, that everything just seems to be misaligned. But what I think is interesting, and I think Auburn really could use, and I'll have your chime in on this as well. Whoever the next coach is, I think they need somebody who's me and Kevin talked about this recently, a calming presence, somebody who's kind of not somebody who's freaking out, losing his mind, somebody who's a calm presence on the sideline. And I think they really need somebody who's a good recruiter. I think more Joe Schmo's recruiting than X's and O's as well, because Auburn has a very potentially good pipeline in Alabama. You're in a very good spot to get a lot of those guys. And I think you mentioned some of the boosters, things like that. If they just put the money on the table and back away, don't get too involved, you can do some really good noise in the transfer portal. Where I think you could, I don't want to say Vanderbilt because it could be better than that, but I think Vanderbilt, but cranked up to 11 with the resources available. And I just think when Auburn's been on, that is a very good recruiting pipeline because they're competing with the guys that go to Alabama, LSU, Georgia, all those places in that area. Problem is, you need the right guy to do that. Somebody who could sit across them at the table and convince them, hey, come to Auburn, come be a Tiger, like that. So I think someone who has a knack for recruiting, I think, is probably the right fit here, even more so than an X's and O's super genius like what's his name, Lincoln Riley type or something like that.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't necessarily agree with the whole calming presence situation. Auburn's never done well with a calm coach. Calm coaches are Brian Harsin and they get fired. Believe it or not, in comparison to some of the coaches who have won, Hugh Freeze, also more of a calm coach than some of the coaches that have won at Auburn.
Nice spending habits, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah. Gus Malzahn, Gene Chizik, Tommy Tuberville, Bruce Pearl going into basketball, Bruce Thompson into baseball. All of them are fiery individuals. You need that on the sideline for this team because Auburn by nature, just by nature of being an athlete at Auburn, you're going to the second best recruiting school in Alabama. You're going to the second best recruiting school in Georgia. You're going to the second best recruiting school in Tennessee. You're going to the fourth best recruiting school in Florida, going to the third best recruiting school in Louisiana, all football pipelines. But what that means is you're going to a school as a player, you're jaded. You need somebody to lead your jadedness in the right direction. You need to be directed the right way. And a calm presence doesn't do it. Nick Saban was able to do what he did at Alabama because Alabama is Alabama. Alabama is number one in Alabama at recruiting. They're number 3 in Georgia at recruiting. They're number 1B in Tennessee, usually tied with Tennessee, if not taking away top recruits from Tennessee. They're number 1 in Louisiana, whether LSU wants to admit it or not. At least they were. And they're number 3 in Florida. So you're going to Alabama, and Nick Saban is just like, look, you can be here or you can get gone. Doesn't matter. Auburn doesn't have that ability. They're not a luxury destination. Auburn is a small city. We talk about the city. There are less people in the city than there are students at the university. On game day, the city size doubles. What does that mean? It means you're going to a farm school. That's fine if you know what you're getting into, if you're there to play football. But to know that you're there to play football, you have to have somebody to get behind. You have to have somebody that's engaging. The reason Cadillac had a great following is because he is a fiery, passionate individual. Durkin will also have that same type of energy if Auburn can win a couple of these games down the stretch. I think what you look for as Auburn, you look for that fire. You look for and I doubt he would come to Auburn, but you look at Vanderbilt's head coach as Clark Lee, as somebody who is a fiery individual that if he wants to step up, technically Auburn is a step up, but Vandy's in a pretty nice position. We talk about boosters. They got a bunch of $1 million engineering boosters out there that can play some money. Auburn doesn't have that. They have a lot of farm schools, a lot of the agricultural stuff. So it is a tougher situation when you look at it like from the standpoint of what type of personality you need at Auburn, because at Auburn you need a guy that's used to taking chip on shoulders and putting it towards an effort. You can't just take a guy who's used to winning and put him in Auburn and expect that to work again. So happened with Hugh Freeze. That's why Brian Harsin didn't work. And I had hopes for Brian Harsin, but he just couldn't figure it out. He was too calm for his own good. He couldn't get fiery to get the players behind him because from the time these kids are 7 to the time they graduate high school, all they know is fiery coaches. Because in every single play, whether it's Little League, whether it's Pop Warner, whether it's middle school or high school, you're competing in Alabama for football championships. That means something for recruiting. You're competing in these stadiums that these guys play college football in. Like, that means a lot to these kids. They need that fiery individual to say, like, I trust you. but I need you to fight for me too. And so calming presence doesn't work for Auburn. Never has, and honestly, I don't think it ever will. And I think that's kind of a misnomer about Auburn is everybody's like, oh, you could be like Alabama. No, that's not what Auburn needs to do. Alabama can do the calming presence. Auburn cannot. That's the antithesis of what they are as a university and what they are as a school.
What I will say is I kind of hope DJ Durkin ends up being the guy because I'd love to see a DJ on the sideline because finally my dreams would get to come true and I could live vicariously through him as he runs the sideline on the secondary. But it's not just go ahead.
I would say that. Well, here's a fun fact for you for coaching. Since you talked about the coaches that have changed, this is the 7th straight unique matchup that'll happen in the Iron Bowl between head coaches. So a completely different coach on one side or the other every year. So yeah, they haven't had the same matchup since Nick Saban's retiring and Gus Malzahn's leaving Auburn. And yeah, so next year, depending on if Durkin's named head coach or not, could be a 8th straight, which is the most in this entire rivalry's history.
Not really a streak you want to be going on necessarily for either school. But you know what? As it plays out, hopefully we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't get to 8, but they're not the only school looking for a head coach. You mentioned there's quite a few. I believe there's been 7 recent openings across college football, but one that might be closer to not to be filled. Rumors allegedly not confirmed, but not denied either. James Franklin potentially heading to the ACC to join the Virginia Tech Hokies. Apparently there's some smoke. We'll see if there's some fire, but I like this move a lot. I like James Franklin. I know I might be the weird guy. I know a lot. It's fun to hate on him. I think he's a very good coach. We kind of talked about the different level of resources like Auburn can't be Alabama. Penn State can't be Ohio State and Michigan. You're not going to compete with that. You're in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. You don't have the same pedigree as them. And now you're throwing in the likes of Oregon, and those other teams that have joined the Big Ten. Good luck. Like, really good luck. What he's been able to do at Penn State, I think, was fantastic over 11 years. You won the Big Ten. You were a hop, step, and a skip away from the Natty last year against the runner-up in Notre Dame. You're consistently ranked. You came to the season number 1. I get it. It was not the season you wanted. Another choke job against Oregon, partially Drew Allar's fault for throwing it right at the guy's head, but I digress. The 3 losses in a row. I also hate, especially in college football, firing a coach midseason. I just with all the levels of in-season recruiting, the games, there's so much managed. I think it's better to wait till the end of the season. But that's just me. I digress there. But I like the idea of James Franklin to Virginia Tech because you don't have to deal with Michigan, Ohio State, and that. Miami, say what you will, they should have that, but they don't. We see it right now. They're $21 million quarterback, and everybody besides Miami fans are like, well, good luck. With Clemson, Dabo's no longer blessed with the blood of the Holy Spirit himself now that everyone else has NIL available, and he's not quite able to run the show in the same way. You send him to Virginia Tech, he might be able to turn that around really quickly because he is a very well-established coach. He's a good recruiter. He's got some street cred. He's got some cachet. And he's got some, look what I did at Penn State. Now I don't have to deal with that behemoth in Columbus or those Ann Arbor sign stealing, whatever you want to call them. Like, the path is much easier to get a shot there. And I think you can get a lot in the transfer portal. Well, that's somewhere it's easier to get people to go to Blacksburg, Virginia, as opposed to some of the other places. I think it might even be easier than trying to get them to go to Happy Valley, or not Happy Valley, sorry, to Penn State. So I like this move if they do, and I think it gives them a chance to shake a little bit of that misnomer of can't win the big game, because it's not when the big game is literally NFL teams, nearly with Ohio State in recent years and Michigan, whose entire team is in the NFL at this point. And that quarterback is clearly possessed by a demon. When you see those Minnesota post-game in the locker room things, that man is not human. Someone get him tested. Take him to the Passion of the Christ or something. Take him somewhere to get looked at, because those demon eyes should not be on a 22-year-old quarterback. But I digress. I don't hate this move. I think it's a pretty good move if it does come to fruition.
Yeah, I don't hate this one at all either. I think James Franklin, when you talk about tiers where coaches do well at, he does well at that not top of a country type of level school. Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Florida State, those schools I wouldn't look at James Franklin as a good fit. But you look at the second tier where the guys that'll compete, the guys that'll have an opportunity to get to the playoffs, maybe not every year, but once every 3 years, guys that don't have to rely on playing 3 big ones against Ohio State, Michigan, and potentially Oregon in the same year just to get it to their conference championship. Those things are going to be a huge boost for James Franklin. So I think a school like Virginia Tech would be great for him. Anywhere really where you're putting him against limited levels of competition. And nothing against the ACC, but when you look at the ACC right now, it's Georgia Tech, Miami, and then there's Clemson. And then there's Virginia. Actually, Virginia might be the best of the group right now. But you have those four, and when you look at Virginia Tech, where they recruit out of, look, Virginia is a really good hotbed for college athletes. When you look at that, the DC Maryland area, there's been a lot of great athletes that come out of that area. And if Virginia Tech can bring kids back to Virginia, I think that's the key. Maybe just keep them in Virginia, I think, is a better way to look at that. And James Franklin has done well recruiting in the past. Recruited well at Maryland. He recruited well at Vandy. Recruited well at Penn State. Got a lot of great talented players. He just never could get over the hump with the big ones, which is part of his coaching staff issues. It's part of his just being too calm of a coach. You go back to the conversation about calm coaches and problems with them. James Franklin is a little too calm of a coach at times. It works at Virginia Tech, doesn't necessarily work at Penn State. And I think that's a situation where you look at him as just a kind of a perfect fit. It wouldn't have worked in Texas for him, but it's like, this is pretty good fit at Virginia Tech right now. So I do hope it comes into fruition. I would like to see Virginia Tech get back to it. It's been a long time since I saw that VT running across the screen in a positive way.
We'll never forget about Beamer Ball. Those of us who remember it, we will always remember he's a legend there, Franklin. You're not even following those shoes. They've had a mess since that point, too. And I think he's a B-plus coach with a very good thing, and 95% of the country should be happy to have him. The problem is Penn State's arguably in that 5%.
I'd be honest and say I think he's an A- coach. I think he's an A-level coach. A- on a bad day. I think he could be an A coach, an A+ on a really good day. But he's not your Nick Sabans. He's not your Kirby Smarts. He's not one of those guys. He's just a really good coach that's going to be there. He's a Kyle Whittingham for Utah. If anybody knows anything about Kyle Whittingham at Utah, all-time winningest coach there, one of the greatest to coach at Utah or in the country in general if you look at his win percentage. But he's going to be overlooked because he's not a Nick Saban. He's not a Kirby Smart. He's not that guy. I think that's what James Franklin falls into, is that he can be really good for a school that maybe isn't competing for a national championship every year, but he can be really good in the ACC.
How would you like him at Auburn if that's the way they decide to go?
No, he's too calm. Like I just said,
honestly, you need a little bit of chaos. You need a little bit of a psychopath. You need someone throwing some shit. You need somebody to spike their headset one time.
I need somebody who's not going to decide to leave my best player on the bench in a crucial situation every time. That's like James Franklin. When he gets involved in coaching decisions on the field is when I have a problem with James Franklin. When James Franklin lets his coaches do it, I don't have a problem with James Franklin.
One thing we do know is he does know how to build a staff. So I think if it's somewhere like what Virginia Tech, like in the ACC, you get what should probably be like a 5-year turnaround. You could probably do that in 2 to 3 years, especially with the transfer portal. I think he can expedite a lot of processes and establish something there. But go and let us know down below in the comments who you all think should be the coach of Virginia Tech and where you think James Franklin would fit. If you think he'd fit anywhere, there is a chance you could say nowhere. But I think he's going to be a coach again next year. At least he should be.
UCLA is always a good option too.
There is LSU if you really wanted to hate himself, I guess. I mean, that's a low bar that was set by the guy before him. All you have to do is not – I'm not going to go there, actually. What I am going to do is talk about where Penn State and LSU are expected to be at this time, but there will not be, the college football playoff, as we do have the first official playoff rankings revealed. And thanks to USA Today, we're going to take a look at what the bracket would look like based on what those rankings are. So this isn't just the rankings. This involves the bracket too. So starting off, we'd have Memphis versus Georgia. Well, let me start. The byes, I think, pretty unanimous. Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, Alabama. I think nobody really argues with that. The top 4 seems set in stone as of right now. No arguments here for me. Memphis versus Georgia, Oregon versus Texas Tech, Virginia versus Ole Miss, and Notre Dame versus BYU. So I got some beef here, but I'm going to let you go first. Where are we? Where's that big? Where are we staring at? Like, really?
I don't hate it, honestly. I really don't. I don't despise this with a passion like I thought I would. I do think Texas Tech's a little too highly ranked. I do think there are some teams that maybe could sneak in here in that 11-12 range instead of Notre Dame. But you know what? I don't hate it for the first edition. And the reason why is because it gives opportunity to teams like a Memphis, to a BYU, to a Virginia, to an Ole Miss, to a Texas Tech, as I just mentioned, that if they lose another game, it doesn't necessarily doom you from getting into the playoffs. But good luck.
No.
Yeah.
It will happen as Texas Tech and BYU face off this weekend. So one of these teams, I think, is basically cooked after that point. Because I think, like you said, if BYU loses, and I stand by it, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs unless they're undefeated. When your quarterback's wearing number 47, that is a crime in itself. And really, I'd kick them out of the playoffs now if I could. But I'm fair, nothing else but fair. So
here's why.
Them out.
Is they made this rule about the Big 12 and every Power 4 having a guaranteed bid. Well, right now in the Big 12, your guaranteed bids are split between Texas Tech and BYU, despite the fact that their actual ranking is much lower than the top 12, which I think is my only problem with this is like it's not the actual 12 best teams. It's, oh, here's a gift for you, Big 12. Here's a gift for you. Like I don't like that. Give me the 12 best teams and we can have a real conversation then.
Just get BYU out of there until their quarterback gets the right number. I will at least entertain the option once that is fixed. I will die on that hill.
Pick one of the two or combine them. Take your pick. Just do one of the three options.
Weirdly enough, my biggest beef is that 10 versus 7 matchup because of the number, and Notre Dame should not be in this spot, let alone the 10. They shouldn't even be in the top 17 if we're being realistic. You had two marquee games on your schedule, and you got cooked by Carson Beck in week 1, and then you lost a thrilling game against A&M, but you still lost it. You were 0-2. You did beat USC. That's a solid win. I mean, USC was ranked in the 20s, I believe. But other than that, you've gone in a can-crushing crusade. You should not be ranked number 10. You should not be ahead of some of those other one. I'd put Vanderbilt at 10 before them. They also have 2 losses, but their quality of losses, which is a terrible thing that I hate. We really only say in college football. Their quality of loss does not hurt it, is not as ridiculous, I guess so. And their quality of schedule. So I still have beef with Notre Dame being at 10. It is Can Crusher Central for the most part after those first 2 weeks, and you lost those first 2 weeks. Look at Miami. They have 2 losses, and where are they in sight? They beat Notre Dame, and they have the same amount of losses. It's Notre Dame got lucky they lost in August and September compared to everyone else is losing right now.
I mean, look, if we're going to pick on a team right now, it is Notre Dame. It is in that 10 spot. And here's the deal. Virginia, who is on this playoff bracket, is 8-1 in a conference. And they're doing well. Louisville, 7-1. Not on this bracket. They are ranked 15th right now, right behind Virginia. Vanderbilt, 7-2, who's been in the SEC, playing really good teams, not in this bracket. Georgia Tech, 8-1, who is an opportunity to win the ACC, sitting at 17th, also not in this bracket. So pick one of these 4 teams to replace Notre Dame as a 10 seed. That means you have a Virginia potentially open up at 11. Give the second one of these teams the 11 seed and just kick Notre Dame to the curb here because this is grotesque. I don't like it. I hate the fact that Notre Dame, it's like an invitational for Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State, no matter what. But it's like, unless they get 4 losses, it's almost like you have to put them in here because they're independent. No, get that crap out of here.
We don't need them in there. Just because they have the cool helmets doesn't mean it needs to be okay. Get them out of there. I can't wait for Texas Tech and BYU because I'm hoping Texas Tech gets that. I will die on the hill about the quarterback number. Get BYU out of there until that is fixed. And if they fix that, then I will not have so much hate in my heart. And I actually think Texas Tech is really good. I think if their quarterback did not get banged up, that one loss might not be there. And now that he's starting to get back healthy, I think they're a very interesting squad. But Memphis, I feel bad for Memphis in this case, honestly. Like, that's cool that they get in there, but like your consolation prize is an angry Georgia. Like, yeah, good luck. Ole Miss, I think they're safely in there, assuming they don't fall down the rest of the way. Oregon, kind of the same. And then the top 4. What's going to be weird is that if things hold true as how they are, we're going to have those 4 teams play each other in their conference championship games. We're going to have Ohio State and Indiana. One of their O's has got to go. Same with A&M and Alabama. Either A&M's O has to go or Alabama has to pick up loss number 2. Which means Georgia, assuming all things hold, is probably potentially going to slide into a 4 spot, even though they won't be playing in a conference championship game if it holds this way. So I'm intrigued to see how this goes. Like, let's say these 4 hold true. Let's just, for hypothetical sake, just to keep it interesting, Ohio State beats Indiana, Alabama beats A&M, because I think that's how they'll be favorited when we get to that point, all things assuming, because how betting odds work. So you got A&M 1 loss, Alabama 1 loss, Ohio State no losses, Indiana 1 loss. Do you shake this up at this point, or do you still keep those 4 there? Because they've been the best 4 teams for the last 3 weeks, and we're saying it holds through conference championship week.
No, you have to keep this. And here's the big rub is, Georgia's sitting at 5. Ole Miss is sitting at 6. A 1-loss Texas A&M team is still better than those 2 teams who have already had 1 loss, or at least 1 loss, and potential changes. Because let's not forget, Georgia Tech play at the end of the year. Let's not forget
8 overtimes of knowing that game's not as easy as it thinks.
It's it is a game that matters. So look, it's not a cakewalk for any one of the top 4, but it feels like the replacements that could be there don't exist in this situation, barring Alabama losing in this situation, barring them losing the Iron Bowl or losing in the SEC championship game. I don't see it happening. Yeah.
I'm in the same boat too. Like maybe if Alabama loses the SEC championship game and there's a 1-loss Georgia, maybe you do that. But at the same time, it's like they get rewarded for not making a conference championship, which is what's kind of weird about this whole thing when those two are running that. So that's my thoughts, but I digress.
I think you give it to the ACC winner at that point in time. You just give it to the next best four, which is just an ACC winner. I just don't think there's any other way you can do that and feel good about who you replace an Alabama 3-loss Alabama team with.
Exactly. Or in that case, it'd be 2. But yeah, if they get 3, then definitely get them out of there. But like 2 loss.
I'm hopeful. Wishful thinking here.
You know what? That's fair. And the ACC might shake itself out differently. Maybe Virginia runs the table and they're looked at a lot more heavily or a lot more favorably than
or Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech too. Good. Like any of the, we'll see how it goes. Or maybe Texas Tech, now that they're healthier at quarterback, they run through the Big 12 impressively. We'll see that if they beat BYU, I think that's gonna be a huge feather in their cap.
Yeah, I am a little confused about the whole Louisville thing though, because if I'm not mistaken, Louisville's an American Conference team.
They are an ACC team, yeah, but
they're an ACC or are they American Athletic? I thought they were American Athletic.
I thought they were ACC. I could be wrong.
Because if they're in the American,
they are in the ACC. They are 4th in the ACC right now.
Okay, never mind. All right, we're good.
I think I'm guessing it's just a conference. Yeah, it's the conference loss that's getting them because right now, Virginia's undefeated, Tech is 5-1, Pitt's 5-1, and Louisville's 4-1 in conference.
Okay,
and then there's Miami sitting at 2-2. So I don't want to hear any more about Hurricane tomfoolery. They are out of it.
No,
they don't need to be squeaking in it. They don't need to Notre Dame their way into that 12 spot. I don't need to hear it.
No, for sure. I'm just making sure because they used to be in the American Conference, so I was thinking that was still the case. Because I was like, they should then get the automatic bid over Memphis, but who, by the way, Memphis is not even in the top 25 for the college football playoff rankings, which is weird.
I get the
they're 8-1.
Watching them actually go in and pull off a massive upset too. Like, no, they're immediately written off and they pull off a massive upset over number 5 is just to shake everything up. But once again, thank you to USA Today Sports for putting together this bracket so I could do that without having to explain all of it. So we got for the visual watchers out there. But let us know down below who you all have. What do you think of the college football playoff bracket? How do you think it's going to shake up? We know there will be at least one change after this week because, well, 2 of those teams play each other and it's mandatory. And neither one of them has the automatic street cred bid like Ohio State, Alabama, etc. One of them's got to go, and I really hope it's that damn quarterback 47 number. I will not accept this. It's 1 through 19. You can wear 22 if you're a Doug Flutie stan. Or you can wear 20 because you're a Mike Winchell Friday Night Lights lover. And even those two are cutting it real thin. That's cutting it real thin. But 47 is a travesty.
Yeah. No. Such a garbage number for a quarterback. If you're going to do that, you better give an offensive lineman a single-digit number. That's it.
I want to see a center with number 1 right now. Like I want to see a number 1, and I want to see a guard next to number 2. Do you want number 1 or number 2 so you can make a bunch of poop jokes?
That's good. I was thinking you put a 6 on the left guard and a 9 on the right guard and call it 12.
With that, that's a perfect way to transition to our next segment. That way, after Kelcey's gem there, that might win himself an award. We're going to talk about some other guys that might be winning an award. It is time now for Kelcey's Heisman hierarchy with finally a mild change. Not a huge change, but we finally got a little something new.
Well, okay, look, it had to happen eventually, and it's not any fault to the person I replaced him with. But my number 3 is a first-time appearance on this. He was an honorable mention before, but Julian Sayin, Ohio State. Look, he had a 20 of 23 game the other day, 300-plus yards, absolutely lighting it up. He's been fantastic all year, and I haven't said that he wasn't at any point in time. Marcel Reed had just been better. Well, Marcel Reed was on a bye. And so, therefore, Julian Sayin gets the conversation. He actually, if you go by betting odds, he is actually the number 1 favorite for betting odds right now. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that, considering we just talked about where Ohio State has some teams left to play this year. Doesn't make me feel very comfortable about that. Not that Texas A&M doesn't have more teams to play, but when you look at the schedule, it's a little more unnerving for Ohio State with what they have left to say Julian Sayin better than Marcel Reed. If Marcel Reed can run the table against Texas and then also against Georgia and then potentially Alabama at the end of in the championship. Julian Sayin really only has Michigan, if that could be the first time Ohio State could beat Michigan in forever, and then Indiana. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Julian Sayin, he's been fantastic all year. Honestly, I still love the idea of just making a Super Saiyan t-shirt and putting it out there for him. But, I do think he's a really good player. he hasn't sold me over the next two on my list. So number 2 on my list is still the same. It is Ty Simpson. It is still Ty Simpson, and until further notice, it will probably continue to be Ty Simpson because he is still that good of a quarterback. Ever since the Florida State game, he's shown exactly why he's the number 1 at Alabama. And he's been he's played himself. You've watched some of these throws; they're dimes. They're absolute dimes. I don't think I've ever seen an Alabama quarterback actually with touch before. Tua, say what you will, didn't really ever have touch. He was a slant and go merchant.
They were
Jalen
open by
didn't.
30 yards. You didn't need
Yeah,
it.
Jalen didn't really have touch. AJ McCarron never really got the opportunity. He probably had the most touch before this.
Mac Jones,
Mac
maybe?
Jones was a timing quarterback. Ty Simpson is actually throwing guys open, which is the first time I've seen it in Alabama in many, many years. And so, yeah, that's why he's still here. And until further notice, until they lose a bad one, it feels like Ty Simpson's going to stay here, barring a bad game and they still win and a Marcel Reed explosion. But number 1 is still a guy who is leading the number 2 team in the nation, which is you look at this, 2 of the top 3, all three of these guys play for a top 4 team in the playoff rankings. Fernando Mendoza, my number 1, though. This guy is still lights out. It's kind of crazy how good he is. Guy that was at Cal, and people forget how good he was at Cal. He's the reason they upset teams, Auburn being one of them.
Miami last year, too.
Yeah, look, hey, Fernando Mendoza has been absolutely fantastic for Indiana, what they've been doing there. It is going to be interesting to see. Obviously, the Ohio State game at the end of the year is going to matter a lot for his Heisman Trophy candidacy. But you look at where they're at right now, you feel pretty good in saying Fernando Mendoza leading the country in touchdown passes still is the best quarterback in the nation. It feels safe to say, which by default gives you the best Heisman Trophy candidacy for a number 2 team in the nation. Julian saying, though, look, I think he has an opportunity to be up here. And if I go by the same voting odds that you see on every betting sports book, it's because he's the number 1 team. He's the number 1 quarterback for the number 1 team in the nation is why Julian saying has the odds. Fernando Mendoza, number 1 quarterback for the number 2 team in the nation, has the 3rd best odds. Ty Simpson is still Ty Simpson, but he plays for Alabama, which is why he has the number 2 odds. So yeah, like, I don't know that I don't agree with necessarily betting odds, but this is my top 3 because this is how I feel about it.
Like I say, all 3 of them are absolutely dealing right now too. They're slinging. They're every feels like every pass they throw, it's like, all right, is it a touchdown or just a big play? Like that they got to that expectation, especially when saying throwing at Jeremiah Smith's way, who I think might take away from him this year just a little bit because we made a 4 and a 5. I'm sure Jeremiah Smith's right in the thick of one of those. If we went beyond 3 at 4 or 5, he's probably right in the thick of it too.
He's 6, but yeah.
Same idea. Like he's right there. It's CMC and Brock Purdy from a couple of years ago, or
yeah.
Devontae Smith and Mac Jones. Just that time it was the opposite, where Devontae Smith took away from Mac Jones a little bit because of how dominant he was. Mendoza, I'm in the same boat. I think it's funny that they're all 3 red teams on top of that too. Just a weird notice there, but I feel like it's going to come down to those 2 around the championship games. Though both Mendoza will be the underdog with Indiana against Ohio State. Simpson and Alabama will probably be a slight favorite over A&M if I had to guess. Even though I think A&M should be the favorite, I think it's gonna be like -2.5 or something. I think it's gonna end up being close to a pick 'em. I think coming down to that could be really the difference maker, or maybe Sam drops 5 touchdowns and Mendoza throws 3 picks and Ty Simpson falls apart. Then maybe it does end up being insane. I think conference championship week's gonna have a lot to say about how these 3 shake out at the end of the year.
Yeah. By the way, a fun fact about the thing you said about the red: 55% of teams that win championships or win awards wear the color red in sports in America.
Well, there goes the fun in it. So that's enough. Let us know down below who. Now it takes away all the fun bets. I guess we can't ever have Dante Moore on the Heisman hierarchy ever again. But this is what we have for.
They could wear red. They could wear pink.
This is what we have for the Heisman hierarchy. Let us know down below who you all have as the front runners for the Heisman Trophy as we are now in the month of November. It's starting to get really serious now. But that's going to do it for our long tip-off segment, which is going to take us into a very chaotic and very fun main event. And for the main event, we're going to head from the college levels to the pro level, even though they all get paid like pros. And we are going to be talking the trade deadline. And we're going to start with the big one right out of the gate. The Colts get lost in the sauce, trading 2 first-round picks and Adonai Mitchell to the New York Jets for Sauce Gardner to come over and be cornerback number 1. And yeah, I'm still not even really sure what to think about this one because he's 25 years old and a 2-time All-Pro. I know he only has 3 career picks, but that's because you don't throw at him. And then when you do, it doesn't really work. I mean, he hasn't given up 2 completions in a game all season, if I'm not mistaken. The advanced not quite Revis-esque, but in that kind of that similar vein of like, you just don't really throw his way. So the stats aren't necessarily, don't really light it up. A few more holding penalties this year. A little bit more press man they've been playing with Aaron Glenn there. So he has to get hands on people, which I think is not his strength. I think he's better off man where he can read and react a little bit better. But well, that's a whole different episode. We won't dive too bad into that one. But we'll start with you. What's our first reaction on this trade, like both from the Colts perspective and the Jets perspective?
Well, let's start with the Colts perspective because I think we all went in this year not knowing what to expect from the Colts.
Low
Obviously,
expected.
yeah, it was lowest a nice way to put it. I was just not going to give any expectations is the best way to put it for me because you didn't know, right? Obviously, everything with Jim Irsay's passing, the family taking over, the controversy there, that conversation, the quarterback controversy early on. Will it be AR? Will he come back healthy? Will he be good enough? Him getting benched, Daniel Jones coming in. It's like, all right, this is a lot happening right now. We don't know what to expect. Jonathan Taylor coming off a bad year. The injuries to the offensive line last year really deterring a lot of things going forward. And now you look at this team and you're like, oh, they're going for it.
Oh,
like,
wagon.
They're really going for it. Alec Pierce looks fantastic as a deep option. Michael Pittman still looks really good as a number one. Tyler Warren is literally a god amongst tight ends for rookies. Like, I'm not going to give him the total godness, for tight ends, but hey, he's number 2 in tight end scoring this year is all I'm going to say. Number 1 in yards.
One just had his leg blew out, so.
Yeah, that's true too. But yeah, you look at this as like for the Colts perspective as, oh yeah, we're really like they're going for it. But they're not going for it in an unsafe manner, right? They're not pitching all of it out there to get an older player. They're pitching it out there to get a 25-year-old 2-time All-Pro who has not really had a bad year. And if I hear one more talking head talk about how if Sauce gets back to how he was early in his career, I'm sorry. Are you watching the same Sauce Gardner I am? Because Sauce Gardner has still got the sauce. He's just not got the spicy sauce right now, but he's still got the sauce. I like a little bit of a little honey barbecue once in a while. I mean, like, I don't need spicy buffalo every time. I can have a little honey barbecue. And right now he's in his honey barbecue phase. He's figuring it out. The dude is still 25. Can we stop pretending like cornerbacks are only good for 1 year? There are a lot of good cornerbacks that last for 5 to 7 years, and Sauce is in the middle of that. He's in the middle of what he's doing, and he's learning how to become a better cornerback. Most corners don't pop off until their 4th or 5th year in the league. He's doing it from year 1 to now. He gets a little learning time. It's okay. Let's not go crazy. It's not like the Jets have been great. So I think this is a great move for the Colts. Now, if you look at the other side, I think this is a great move for the Jets. 1, you don't have to pay that contract anymore. Great for you. 2, you get 2 number 1 picks over the next 2 years. Great. 3, you get a weapon, an actual weapon at receiver. When's the last time you could say that about the New York Jets?
Garrett Wilson.
Oh, yeah, Garrett. Okay. But it feels like he's absent most of the time when he's on the field. And that sounds bad. Obviously, from a fantasy owner's perspective, he's not. But from a watching TV perspective, it feels like they're absent there. You get the 2 first
you're
round
getting
picks.
A very talented guy that a lot of people thought could go first round too. And you know how it is with those fresh starts sometimes. Sometimes like, oh, you've been unlocked. And him and Arch Manning in 2 years when he comes to the Jets, it's going to be real fun.
2 years, maybe it might be less. They can figure it out. But no, from the Jets perspective, I think this is a win for them as well. Just from this alone, only this trade, just looking at it that way, because they're also building for the future. Not that you couldn't have built with Sauce, but if you're going to keep Aaron Glenn, Sauce is not the right fit for this team. And I think that's what it was. You just paid all this money to get Aaron Glenn. As you mentioned, as a press cover team, man press is not Sauce's forte. It's just not what he does well. It's not what he's ever done well. He is not as fleet of foot to be able to run that. And so it is perspective from the Jets. Like, okay, we're going to use him. We're going to get quality players coming in and quality talent for the next 2 years, hopefully for a first round pick if they draft well. But yeah, I think this is a win for both sides. It's just a bigger win for the Colts now and potentially a bigger win for the Jets long term if the Jets can make the picks work.
I feel like if everything clicks and everyone stays healthy, the Colts might have created the best secondary on paper in the NFL when they get, because you have Sauce on one side, you have Trevarius Ward, who's kind of in a not quite Sauce PS2 category, but like that tier right below it. Like he's right there outside of maybe that top 5.
How they snuck him out of free agency, I don't understand.
That was a lot of money. And that's what happens when right there, like, all right, but GM, you can keep your job one more year somehow, but you're going to spend money this time. And how the turntables have turned in the last 12 months went from being a bargain bin to now a blockbuster. But you have those two. You have Kenny Moore in the nickel, who still you can make a case as one of the best nickels in the game.
Especially this year.
Exactly. Cam Bynum and Nick Cross at safety. Cam Bynum, we know what he can do outside of the celebrations. He is a natural ball hawk. Nick Cross is a torpedo. I think they went from a position of weakness to strength really quickly just because of what you can provide. Lou Anarumo is going to have a whole lot of fun with that because you, in certain cases, you'd be like, you know what, Sauce, just chase that guy around. The other 10 of us are going to do some weird, goofy stuff. Like maybe it'll be a cover 3, except for you. You're just playing man on whoever it might be. Like you chase Rashee Rice around when they play the Chiefs. Everyone else, we're going to drop into a very unique coverage. It gives them a lot of versatile pieces. The corners don't have to move. Because you can just literally put them on their sides, like, all right, go line up on Ward or line up on Sauce, put them in the slot and deal with Kenny Moore. That opens things up, and I think it also shows that they're going to stick with Daniel Jones, and I feel like his contract extension is coming because you don't give away those type of assets if you're not comfortable with your quarterback per se. Yeah. So either that or they really are banking on AR taking a leap next year, but he gets hurt during warmup, so they might want to be careful with that one. So. And I think it's meant to take a little bit of pressure off the offense as well, just having the defense like that. So I think it's a great move. I always forget Sauce is like 6'3" as well. Like I know he's lengthy, but I always picture him at like 6 foot. He's really 6'3". So he's helps a lot with getting dunked on when you have to deal with some of those tight ends being split out and things like that. So I think that provides a new element, helps the pass rush, which is always hit or miss. And then for the Jets, it's a Madden move. That's the only way to describe it. You are blatantly outright tanking. And normally they hide it a little bit better than this, but this one that they've conceded. We'll talk about the other trade they made in just a moment, but I don't really love it when you have a blue chip player. You find a way to make the blue chip player work, but I don't know. I'm really worried, and I ever since Rob Saleh left and got, in my opinion, unceremoniously and falsely shouldn't have been fired from the Jets in the first place. That's when you kind of saw Sauce's game. I'm not going to say go down, but he wasn't. It was like you said, it was more honey barbecue Asian zing than blazing buffalo at that point.
Yeah,
I think there is something to coaching and scheme when you use your best players. So that's. And at the same time, we're going to skip. This is a good move for both of them. If the Jets can make those late 20s, you presume, picks work, along with their not late 20s own picks that they will have, I think they're in position to do something for sure. I think there's an opportunity to rebuild if they get you still have to hit the right guy. It's still a lottery ticket in the draft at the end of the day. Jeremiah Smith is going to look awfully good in that New York Jets green in a couple of years, unless he decides to stay all 4 years and go full senior.
Let's be honest. That's going to come from their own pick, whether they got the Colts picks or not.
Oh yeah, that's their pick. The Colts pick is going to be who they're using all those picks to.
The Colts pick is going to be a great offensive lineman at 28.
They're going to use that and the other picks they've had, and they're going to trade all the way up and try and end up with picks number 1 and 2. They're going to take the Houston route from a couple of years ago. It's like, all right, we're going to get both in one single go. But the good news is this wasn't the only trade the Jets made, as we talked about. Is there's a little bit more going on with the trade deadline. So let's just take a small look at some of the different things that have gone on. This is just a list of some of the various trades that have happened, but we're going to focus on Quinnen Williams heading to the Dallas Cowboys for a second rounder, a 27 first rounder, and Mozzie Smith. So I'm very curious about this move because Quinnen Williams is awesome. I think the Jets should have kept him. He's 27. He could be part of your rebuild and still be very good. He still has 3 years on his contract. If you're the Cowboys, he's really good. Him and Kenny Clark is havoc in the middle, but you traded like 50% of the Micah Parsons trade for Quinnen Williams there tonight, and you still need an edge rusher. So it's a weird fit, but at the same time, it's always a good idea to get good players. It's just weird how they went about it. And from the Jets, looking at all of the players they're going to fire, sell, and trade, these are probably the 2 I wouldn't have done. I'm looking at like Breece Hall. That's somebody you want to get out of there. He's on the last year of his deal. It's an expiring deal too. Sauce for the 2 picks. I get it, but you got a first-round pick for Quinnen, but with that pick, what are you going to try and get? Quinnen Williams? Or you got to replace that interior rush. So it's a weird one, but I don't hate it.
I mean, I think they love Mozzie Smith is why. I think they
That's
somehow
a problem
love
in itself.
Yeah, like the fact that Mozzie Smith was an expendable piece for Dallas should tell you that he is not Quinnen Williams. Like that should be.
Kenny Clark was required for that Micah trade because they didn't want to play Mozzie Smith.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I hate the Quinnen Williams move from the perspective of like, well, okay, you just lost your franchise guy, a guy who admitted that he wanted to stay as a Jet for a long time, and he's gone. I honestly thought you were going to bring in the Jashir Taylor talk conversation coming over from the Chargers back to the Jets to replace Sauce, but I guess not. Honestly, the Jets. I said they won the other move, but only because of that move only. Not talking about their other moves. This is the number 1 on the list of like, what were you guys thinking here? I don't quite understand it. Yeah, I mean, this is the most tanking move of all of them. But yeah, I mean, good for Quinnen Williams. Get out of there. You're going to be loved in Dallas, and probably actually get some sacks now because you have. I mean, who would have thought Dallas is going to all of a sudden have a great interior offensive line? It's going to be interesting to see between Solomon Thomas, between Kenny Clark, and between Quinnen Williams how they work those three out. Maybe they go three down line in the center or in the middle, and then just have stand up outside rushers. I, I don't know what their plan is from Dallas's perspective, but I think Dallas obviously won this one. They fleeced the Jets in a lot of ways. Although they'll miss that, first rounder in 2027, that'll be a 15 to 18 pick. But they don't at least lose on a 2026 first rounder, so that's good. But
I
yeah,
think
Quinnen
that
Williams is a shock.
I think that pick too, it's going to be the higher of the two. So it's either Green Bay or Dallas. Is whichever one's the better pick, that's going to be the one it goes to, which
Yeah.
you don't love because if Dallas falls apart in 2 years, that's a really good pick going. Or if the Green Bay falls apart, you don't love that. But if you're both teams with your expectations, it's like, okay, fine. That's a pick in the 20s. And I just wish Dallas had a defensive coordinator who had a deeper bag, is how I'm going to say this to be politely. Because when Matt Eberflus is in charge of the defense, the bag is very, very dry. It's not a bag if you came back after going trick or treating, you'd be happy with. I wish they had someone like a Dan Quinn, Lou Anarumo. Jeez, I could not speak. Like D'Amico Rance, Robert Salas, somebody who could really use some of those unique pieces they have. Like, don't get me wrong, their defense still kind of stinks, and the stats prove it. But you have weirdly good pieces that could be fun there. As a Rocco, you mentioned the 3-down linemen, what you could do with those three. You still got Deron Bland, who has his faults. We saw Marvin Harrison point out a lot of them on Monday night. But they have some weird pieces where if they had a defensive coordinator with a bag, I think that could be a very interesting fit. A couple other quick trades. They did bring in Logan Wilson as well. We'll see how that works out. Jacoby Myers going to the Jaguars. That tells me Travis Hunter is definitely going to be out for a month. Then probably some change too.
Yeah.
Trevor Penning going to the Chargers because they just need bodies that count as offensive linemen now that Joe Alt-Elite is out for the season, unfortunately. Keon White going to the 49ers. Kyle Duggar to the Steelers is a weird one. This is the other kind of what I thought was an underrated big one too. Well, two of them. Jalen Phillips going to the Eagles. Jalen Phillips is freakishly talented and just part of that. It's a young edge rush rotation, but I think they need a little bit of that veteran gangster, if you will, something they had during the 2 Super Bowl runs with guys like Brandon Graham, etc. They don't really have that this year, so I really like that move. And then Rashid Shaheed going to Seattle. What a perfect fit. A guy that's good. If you don't have the safety over the top, he's leaving, which gives Jackson Smith and Jigba even more room to absolutely terrorize the entire NFL. I think that's just a perfect yin and yang fit for what they have at receiver too. Now, if you want to double him, Shaheed's flying down the field, and Sam Darnold suddenly is the best deep ball thrower in the league statistically on top of it. Granted, JSN's the best deep ball receiver. So now you got two of them, and JSN's ability to get loose from everybody. So those are a few of the moves that I looked at. I'm like, oh, okay, these teams are making some moves and they're making some good ones. Yair Alexander to the Eagles, I don't care about right now. Like if this was Yair from 2022, that's different. But he is not. I think he's still not healthy, honestly. He hasn't quite been himself this year. There's a reason the Ravens and their past defense woes were willing to let him go.
Yeah. I think one on here that I'm kind of shocked with. Talk about getting fleeced. The Bears Browns trade. Joe Tryon Shoyinka. Goodness, I always mess that up. Going to Chicago along with a 2026 6th rounder or 7th rounder for a 2026 6th rounder. Browns, what? Why'd you give 2 things away to get 1 thing back? This one doesn't make sense to me. I don't get this. A guy has 15 sacks in his career through 2024, 3 seasons. That's 5 sacks a season. You'll take those numbers. Especially if you're Cleveland, where you're awful, and you're trading him to Chicago, who's not awful, who has been looking for a dynamic edge rusher to throw in there to help out with their defense, who is not necessarily struggling by any means this season, but could use some more creativity in how to rush the passer. I look at that and I'm just like, what? Along with the Greg Newsome trade, earlier in this, before the trade deadline, the Browns just talk about another team that is just obviously tanking here. I don't get it. And then, you could even add the Joe Flacco trade in this conversation of like, what are the Browns even trying to accomplish? Because it doesn't seem like it's a whole lot other than just decimating their roster and trying to pay Myles Garrett. That's what this feels like. and maybe trying to pay Deshaun's contract. I don't know what else is happening here, but Cleveland is just. I think they lost the plot at this point in time because that Joe Tryon trade is just wild. I don't think I've ever seen something like that from the perspective of you're trading an actual player and a pretty negligible pick for just a negligible pick back.
Especially when you look at the Bears too. Right now they're sitting at, I believe, 5-3. So like they're fine. They're in the middle of the pack. They're in the playoff hunt right now. They're right. That could potentially be a playoff team per se. Like let's say a 7 seed. That 6th rounder is going to be not that far away from your 7th rounder because you're going to be at the top of the 7th round. So you're going up 6 spots maybe.
Yeah, looking at like maybe at most 14 picks away from each other. Like that's nothing's happening in the 6th and 7th round to be that drastic between the two.
Unless you think you're going to get draft Tom Brady, but based on the Browns' recent draft history, I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. So
I mean, they won't even play Shador right now, so until that happens, I don't know how to help them.
I'm surprised. Honestly, they should have been calling the Colts like, "Hey, do you want Myles Garrett for 3 first-round picks before this happened?" They should have been looking to move off that. They need to just accept the fact that everything is getting torn down at this point.
Call the Cowboys or something.
You know what? That would have been something. It's like that. I think Jerry Jones would have been completely forgiven if you would have, for the Micah Parsons trade, if you would have brought in Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. I think everyone would have been like, you know what? You cooked, Jerry. We're sorry. You made this out to work out. But those are the only 2 guys that did pass rush wise. I think could have worked. But yeah. I'm excited. I can't wait to see how some of these new faces look in new places. Looks like Sauce is cleared concussion protocol, or at least he's practicing right now. He had a full practice today, so maybe he's going to play debut against Drake London. We'll see. It's very interesting to see how things come out of the gate. But let us know down below what you all thought of this NFL trade deadline insanity. But one thing Sauce Gardner does have to his name is Defensive Rookie of the Year. Got that in his rookie year. So he's familiar with hardware, which means we're going to be talking about some NFL hardware too, as we're going to talk the MVP ladder. And his new teammate, Jonathan Taylor, is now in the 3 spot. He's got a drop. It was a bad week for him. I think 10 carries for 24 yards. Steelers gave him no room. He didn't make an impact, and they lost badly. Still a great season. Still awesome. He's still in the running because of that, pun intended, but you can't be at number 1 after that. It's a week-to-week performance. You got to be performing, which means at number 2, we have a guy who hasn't been on for a while either. Drake May, jumping up to number 2 as well. Outstanding season, leads the NFL in completion percentage, one of the better deep ball throwers statistically, high up there in yards, touchdowns. My only concern, he's done a lot of can crushing this year. They did beat the Bills. That is a good win, but I am a lot of those wins I'm curious about. Just like, all right, that schedule's been very favorable, but at the same time, they have the Bucs this week too. So he puts on a performance against the Bucs. We'll see. He's earned the spot. He's definitely earned this spot, and I think he's going to continue. But at number 1, as things change, sometimes they look the same. Old man reliable Matthew Stafford taking the spot at number 1. Leads the NFL in touchdown passes, right up there in yards. He has, I think it's 21 touchdowns at 2 picks. He looks like he's 37 years old, but he looks like 20-something-year-old Aaron Rodgers right now, the way he's slinging. He is dealing. It might be the best he's ever played. And he's had some pretty good seasons. He has a 5,000-yard season on his book. He's dealing. Puka's been banged up, missed a game or 2, I believe. He's still making it happen. Devontae's still out there. Whittingham, the offensive line has been weirdly good. The Rams might just be the best team in the NFL. They are a wagon. And it's led by Matthew Stafford, who, when we did our predictions, he had a broken back. And now suddenly he can't miss a beat. Now he's taking hits and bouncing back up. So, you know what? That back was not actually injured. He just didn't want to do training camp. I'm convinced. And he is rewarding them for it because he has been lights out. So at the midway point of the season, Matthew Stafford is your leading candidate for MVP.
I don't hate it. Let me just say, I think you watched Chris Sims occasionally, because I think Chris Sims is banging on this drum for Matthew Stafford to be higher on MVP rankings, and he should be. I don't disagree with it. Yeah, I don't disagree with it at all. I think Drake May also is well deserving. I think Jonathan Taylor is well deserving. I think I cursed Jonathan Taylor after our last episode when I was like, maybe you should put DJ up here instead of Jonathan Taylor. And I was wrong.
Yeah, you jinxed both of them, you jerk.
I did. I ruined my fantasy football team across 3 leagues and not just 1. So good job, Kelcey. But no, I don't hate this list at all. It feels like this MVP season is very interesting for the NFL, where it feels like this is the one, if you're going to have a non-quarterback, you're going to have the best opportunity through JT, but it doesn't feel like he's the only one. There is still a JSN conversation to be had out there. He's
number 5. He's number 5. I ran
not
out of
there yet. But also you still have Josh Allen, who is still floating out there as, I think he's the odds-on favorite right now still for MVP. But you look at that as it feels like it's a LeBron situation in the NBA where he's just there because he's Josh Allen, not necessarily because he's having a fantastic season, because he's not having as good of a season as Josh Allen normally has. So yeah, I think when you look at Stafford, when you look at May, when you look at Taylor, I like where this 3 is. You know, you look at Daniel Jones potentially being number 4, I think is probably where you have him, and number 5 is no. Okay, so you even have Daniel Jones dropping even further. All right, fair enough.
He's well out. You can't have 5 turnovers and stay up that high,
Yeah, that's
especially
fair.
when you. So right now, if I had to go 4 and 5, it'd probably be Josh Allen at 4, then Jason at 5, Patty at 6.
I do have to know though, if Baker has a great week this week, does Baker have odds on getting into this top 3?
He unfortunately had the downside of he didn't play his best ball, then had the bye week. So that's what kind of pushed him out here, even though he led for a few weeks. He cooks up the Patriots. Let's say he dices them up like he did Seattle. He might be popping in that 3 spot next week. I'm not saying anything's out of it. Like he could pop to that 3 spot. He could pop up to 4. It's a very fluid MVP race right now. Like where Baker was running the show for a few weeks there earlier, I think it's opened up a lot. It's not like it's kind of like when you have like Shea, Jokic, and Giannis out always kind of it's not like the years where it's Jokic from pillar to post. So I think it's very, very fluid. And we're also the weirdos that are willing to put non-quarterbacks on the list. So that makes it even more fluid. We were one of the nerds that was like, no, they're just fighting for offensive player of the year. It's got to be a quarterback award. Then it gets a little bit different. But we are equal opportunists. We believe in fairness here. We believe in equality amongst positions. So when you are on pace to be in the LaDainian Tomlinson categories, you will make the list. When you're on pace in Calvin Johnson statistical categories on that pace, you will make the list. Frankly, if Brian Burns is not too far away if the Giants didn't stink, honestly. They could actually, if a few of those games they choked, they won. Who knows? Because he's been on a tear too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said we're crazy enough to put non-quarterbacks on this list. I'm looking at the odds right now. Jonathan Taylor is 12th best odds in MVP voting right now, which is crazy to me.
What's annoying too is even before this last week, I guarantee he wasn't higher than 9.
Yeah.
Even after a bad week, it's not like he was even that high to begin with.
The next closest non-quarterback is Christian McCaffrey. Like that is 15, 18, maybe 15 to 18, somewhere in that range. And JSN just under 20.
CMC deserves some consideration considering he's putting that team on his back, but still, like
I don't know what kind of black magic they're doing there to keep him healthy, but something's happening.
They sacrificed everyone else on the team. They did the backwards of last year. Where it's like, all right, CMC's the only one surviving this.
He usually wins Offensive Player of the Year or gets hurt. There are only 2 options with CMC.
I guess we know what's going to happen, which means, sorry, JT and JSN, you're getting hosed out of MVP and Offensive Player. But this is what I have for the MVP ladder for this week in Week 11. Let us know, or Week 10, excuse me. Let us know down below who you have as your favorites for MVP moving forwards and who you think is going to win it. But that's going to do it here for the main event, which is going to take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show. And that is, of course, Crunch Time. And for Crunch Time, we're going to kind of take a visit down memory lane from last week, but with a full different twist. Is we're talking gambling and major sports, but we're not focusing on the NBA this time. The UFC has found themselves in a situation, as you might say it. So I'm using this graphic that was posted here by Timothy Ween, an MMA reporter, just so once again, I don't have to explain all of it, but they found themselves in a very weird situation where UFC featherweight Isaac Dolgarian lost by a first-round submission at UFC Vegas. He was a favorite, minus 250, hours before the fight. Massive betting volume shifting in favor of Del Valle, his opponent, especially on a first-round finish. And this is a prelim fight. These are not known names. Like you have college basketball players with more notoriety than this. So this is not like a main event. This is not this is people betting on preseason third-string quarterbacks right now. These are not well-known guys. They were warned. The UFC allegedly was warned once they saw that irregular activity. Do not let the fight proceed. The UFC allowed it to go. When exactly is the bets predicted? And Dolgarian's performance was criticized as unusually poor. Dolgarian released the next day. Fight purse was withheld. It's kind of similar to a betting investigation from a few years ago. By the way, you want to know how irregular the betting was for this one? Per reports, a total of $16 million was wagered at the Hard Rock Casino on this fight. This is a prelim of a fight night, if I'm not mistaken. Like this wasn't a pay-per-view co-main event. This wasn't a title fight, a contenders fight. They're not ranked there. This is preseason fights, basically. This is that second week of the preseason after the starters are yanked and the backups are out. These are guys trying to fight for special teams. These are the 13th men on the bench that you only know when they randomly come in and do something funny in a game that's down 30. There's been alleged hundreds of fights potentially flagged. That has also been hit or miss, like that take that with a pound of salt. Very similar to the NBA one, as we mentioned. Lower level fighters are, as we mentioned, are the ones that are kind of vulnerable because, well, they don't get paid nearly as much. They're very easy to access. It's probably hard to get a hold of John Jones unless I keep that comment to myself. But it's very much easier to access those type of guys. Multiple fighters have come out and said that they've been offered to before. And then, of course, the next day they're like, "Oh wait, no, I was joking," which is a lie. They just realized, "Oh, I'm going to be facing investigators for that." It doesn't end that way. I'm not going to play this video, but Dana White also responded to that in basically the most Dana White way possible of not actually saying anything. Literally, the first thing we did was call the FBI and met with them. You're trying to do this your own worst enemy. If this happened, then why did you let the fight continue? The FBI told you to not let the fight continue, and you still let it happen. So this is something else to be very concerned about. And fighting is a very unique one because we talked about it in NBA. You could maybe mitigate that with your betting partners. Like, all right, just take away teams up, take away individual player prop bet unders so they can't purposely hose like a Terry Rozier. In fighting, you can't take away the money line necessarily where someone throws a fight. Like that just takes away betting altogether. So that puts you in a hole there. There's a little bit more that this is kind of the main thing. I won't play the entire video, but we will go after you with the FBI. You just let the fight happen though. You just I don't understand how you let the fight happen, even though you allegedly knew it was coming. So this is a terrifying thing for the UFC because now every single time you watch a fight, anytime something happens, anytime something goofy happens, like, what do you mean by that? Like, it's literally the Drewski meme. What do you mean by that? Anytime things happen, there's a lot of correlations that every time you look back, there's also rumors. This is allegedly that a certain referee's fights are going to be audited to see if he was part of it too. Because how easy is it to get a hold of a referee and be like, hey, maybe if it looks dicey, stop that fight 3 seconds before the round, or if it's something like that. Or a judge. Terrible judging is literally like death and taxes in the sport. There's terrible judging all the time. Makes you wonder, like, well, how does that a 50-45 round? He clearly lost 2 of those rounds. How did you give him all 5 rounds? Or wait, he got a point deduction. He's still bad judging is now going to be a cover up, is what it's worried about. So this is a dangerous look for the UFC. It's a very dangerous look, especially with these lower level fighters who are making like 12,000 to show, 12,000 to win. It's like, all right, 12,000 to win from Dana White, 75,000 to lose from sketchy guy in the back alleyway behind the Hard Rock Casino. Like you're putting in a very weird spot. So they're not good. Not a very good look right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So I read the article on USA Today that they put out about this, and TMZ in the TMZ interview, it was the UFC that did report it to the FBI, which I give Dana White that credit. Like, he was like, whoa, hold on. So supposedly before the match, he called up the fighter and the lawyer and said, hey, there's a bunch of weird things happening. You good? And like, what are you trying to do? Throw this match? And he was like, no, I want to kill this guy, is essentially, quote unquote, what he said. But obviously it happened the way it did. And yeah, I don't love the idea of canceling fights, period. But in a sport that's been so notorious with gambling rings, illegal activity, mafia work, gang violence, gang affiliation, and every negative connotation you can have around the world of sports, you'd think that maybe, just maybe, your PR person might be like, hey, maybe we don't do this fight. It's a prelim to a prelim. We don't need to do this. Like, doesn't need to happen. We don't need to put ourselves in hot water. As you showed with that first graphic, 111 other fights are under, over 100 fights are also under investigation here.
Or they've been flagged, I guess. They're not technically being investigated yet, but it's like, we got our eyes on you because
it's
interesting.
It's crazy. Also, hey, you know what? The UFC is also one of the few sporting events that doesn't have a union for its fighters. And it's also a very easy way to get in on a fighter and get in on an athlete is when that player doesn't have a guaranteed contract to fight with, to compete with. It does open up the opportunity for a fighter to be bribed by an extra large wad of cash. It happens. It is what it is. Just, maybe pay your fighters a little more in your billion-dollar industry, maybe just a little more. And you have a great opportunity to avoid this going forward. And maybe also don't affiliate yourselves with sketchy sports books. That's also probably number 2 on the list. But yeah, I don't know. I don't love this whole thing, but I'll give credit where credit's due, where Dana White was at least honest about the fact that they saw it beforehand, contacted them. They did their due diligence from that perspective. and they were the ones that called the FBI. So I'll give them that credit. But that's all the credit they get in this conversation.
Like irregularities is one thing. Like, okay, this is weird. A lot of money came. This isn't just irregular. This is $16 million allegedly. If that is actually correct, on two fighters that 90% of the MMA community didn't even know who they were. They couldn't pick them out of a lineup. Like these are, like you said, these are prelims to the prelims. This is the 14th. These are the 13th or 14th guys on the NBA bench. If the UFC didn't have to hold so many events a year due to their media rights obligations, they wouldn't be in the UFC most likely. They should be on the come up. They should be on the regional scene. But you have to have that. You have to have a certain roster of fighters to fill these events. Like this isn't a shot to them because they're still very they're talented, good fighters. But my goodness, that $16 million, like I guarantee you did not get $16 million bet on the main event of that fight night card or anyone else on even the main card. Like that's beyond irregularities. That's insanity almost.
We know some betting degenerates out there in the world, and we know those betting degenerates wouldn't have even touched this fight night with a stick, with a 10-foot pole, with a toxicity suit on. Take your pick. They would have never touched this fight. Although, I mean, like if I'm going to look at it from my bettor's perspective, I'm looking at the ranking, I'm looking at the ratings. 7-1 fighter versus a 9-0 fighter. I'm going to take the 9-0 fighter on a prelim to a prelim because it should be it just so happens that the 9-0 fighter is also the guy who was the underdog somehow. So that's why I don't know. I don't want to try to justify the situation, but if I'm just going to be like looking at it from an innocent perspective, I probably also would have bet against Dolgarian, but I also probably would have bet that would have lost. So what do I know?
Dolgarian also the level of competition and the way he had finished the fights was kind of like his 7-1 was more impressive than the 9-0 at the same time. It's the can crushing thing we kind of talked about Drake May a little bit. Like it's different levels of how you got to that point and what they had done in their fight careers at that point. But still 16, we might be like you said, I might just take it based on the records and the underdog thing. Not $16 million worth. Not betting that much on it. Not even $16 worth.
16 cents, maybe. All right. We have a conversation.
On a good day after a bonus, maybe. Then we'll think about it. But this is a bad look that we have this topic on the show back-to-back weeks across different sport leagues. I'm hoping that this is ends up being a blip and ends up getting taken care of. But this is not the first time because you see the James Krause and Derek Minier linking going back about fight fixing a couple of years ago where James Krause is now is banned from the UFC and they basically said like, yeah, he doesn't even know the word, but he doesn't even use the word gambling anymore, period, from a coach. So it's a very dangerous situation to get in. And I hope that's not something that follows because the UFC is a very unique sport where it can't be like if Steph Curry starts bricking shots, it's like, well, that's irregular. The UFC fighters, it's not always the most athletic. And usually you don't choose to get punched in the head for a living if you're the smartest guy in the world. So sometimes some very irregular things do happen in that octagon. So it's like now every time something irregular happens, someone falls down awkwardly. It's like, what do you mean by that? What are you trying to say over there? Yeah, like it brings up everything into question at this point.
Hey, this is why we should get into sumo as a nation. If you haven't watched any sumo wrestling, it is fantastic and very well regulated, by the way, because it's all run by the Yakuza. I mean, supposedly. But if you want to make smarter bets going forward, give our friends Outlier an opportunity, outlier.com. They can help you bet smarter. So maybe you can avoid getting involved with the FBI.
Yeah, good luck to anybody. Good luck to Dolgarian and the rest of them because I can't imagine this going well. But that is going to do here for us on the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all so much for joining us here on this Wednesday evening for one of your favorite places to catch podcasts later in the week. We'll see you all again next time.